folks, Scott here with the new My Monthly Hero May 2021 kit. This is all about coral reefs this month. Very interesting. Let's dig in and see what we've got. This is our 6x8" stamp set featuring this large coral stamp, really nice and large. That's got to be just a little over 5 inches. That'll cover up a whole card right there. An extra piece of coral here and a shell over here. We've got a number of fish here. I'm not sure what this is. This is a lionfish, seahorse. This looks like a blue tang. Oh, we also have a starfish, some bubbles, an angelfish, and a couple of clownfish. And of course, this great big jellyfish over here. We also have, 6 sentiments here, hoping to see you soon. There's a pun. Stay salty. I like that. You're fantastic. Another pun. Thank you. Salt water heals everything. And sending you a little vitamin C. Another pun there. Really nice stamp set with that gorgeous coral stamp there. Of course, we get matching dies for all of these. Even that big coral stamp has a die for it. That'll cut out everything in our kit. We do get a nice little bag of goodies this month with some embossing powder and ink cubes. This is the underwater embossing powder. Underwater embossing powder with a nice amount of sparkle and shine there. We've got 2 ink cubes this month. Intensified Black, which is the Hero Arts black ink that will work with watercoloring or Copic markers, works with just about everything, and the contour ink. I believe Hero Arts came out with this ink to facilitate no-line coloring. So maybe I'll have to practice my no-line coloring this month. We also get some sheets of cardstock. These are all 8.5 by 5.5. We get 2 sheets of rose quartz pearlescent paper, 2 sheets of quartz, plain quartz pearlescent paper, and 3 sheets of white frost cardstock that have a nice brocade texture. I think you can see it there. A nice little stripy texture on that. Looks like we're going underwater this month. We're going to go exploring some coral reefs. Let's dive right in. And here we have our 10 cards for the month. Now, I must apologize for being a little late with my post this month. I've been preoccupied with a fun bit of renovation going on in the office/craft/guest bedroom. Our second bedroom is basically an 8-foot by 14-foot room and has always doubled as a guest room by way of this futon. The drop wing desk folds down and the futon folds up. My desk is on the left, Joel's desk is on the right with the drop leaf between us. You can see my green cutting mat on the drop leaf. That's basically my crafting space. Needless to say, all of these cupboards are full, and the white cart at the end of the futon is a recent addition to replace an old set of plastic drawers on wheels that finally collapsed under the load of too much paper. I feel like we're at a slight disadvantage living in New York City as far as a craft room goes. Not only do we have limited space, but we live 2 blocks away from the George Washington Bridge, so we get a lot of dust. I don't think I could ever imagine having racks and racks of colorfully filed paper just sitting out in the open. So I've always been focused on covered storage for all of my craft supplies. I mean, my silhouette portrait even has a dust cover. For a number of years, I'd seen some sideways Murphy beds that had desks attached to them. I found one I really liked, but it was hugely expensive, so I kept looking around. I finally found this one at Costco, believe it or not, and we made the plunge. This is my new 6-foot, 4-inch long craft desk. It just happens to have a bed attached to the back of it. I can really spread out, and everything on the desk can stay there as the bed folds out. It automatically stays level and tucks neatly under the bed. We got rid of the drop leaf table and filled in that space with a lateral file cabinet. Much better use of the space, and it fit just perfectly. Now, the Murphy bed was quite a bear to assemble, as the whole thing has to be carefully leveled and anchored solidly into the wall. Ultimately, we will add cabinets and drawers to the left and right and across the top of the bed. I found some IKEA cabinets that will fit perfectly, but IKEA seems to be out of everything up and down the East Coast. So those will have to wait. Now this room feels very different, but there's much more floor space without the futon. My desk chair fits at the new desk just as well, and I can roll back and forth and to and fro and grab and go. All of this reno totally quashed my crafting mojo. I was just not feeling it. And even when I sat down to work, I kept fussing about moving things around and figuring out where this tool can and cannot live, and what I want on my desk and what needs to be stored away. I was pleased to finally get things together enough to get this batch of cards completed. It'll take some time to get used to this new setup, and I'll save the whole craft room tour for whenever we complete the cabinets and final storage solutions. Till then, let's make some cards. Now, I'm not very well practiced with no-line coloring, so I took the contour ink and that coral stamp, and I started playing. So for our first card, we've got a simple thank you card. I stamped the coral on some watercolor cardstock using the contour ink, and I colored this with my Derwent Inktense watercolor pencils. Now, I'm not sure if I would recommend that contour ink for this image. There is so much detail on that stamp. So using that contour ink, you lose some of the details trying to do some no-line coloring here. I did add some highlights back in with a white gel pen also, and I used the matching die to cut out the floral, and I filled in the white border around that with an alcohol marker, nice and easy. Now, I stamped that coral stamp again on a piece of Hero Hues Arctic cardstock using Blue Hawaii reactive ink. And I added a touch of shading with an alcohol marker, just a little bit. And then I stenciled some water ripples over the top of that with Splash reactive ink. Now, I liked the water ripples and thought the coral was feeling a little flat, so I stenciled some ripples on top of the coral as well. I die cut both of these pieces with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die so they would all fit. I put a black thin mat underneath the background, attached our coral piece on top of that with some foam tape. I stamped the sentiment using the intensified black ink, and I did emboss that with a little bit of clear embossing powder. And for our final embellishment, I dug up some of these green droplets from the My Monthly Hero March of 2019 kit. I tell you, I'm always looking for easy ways to add some depth to my underwater scenes. That's not a really easy task. I think this has some nice dimension and a serene underwater feel. That card was certainly time consuming with lots of coloring and fiddling around. I wanted something very easy after that. So for our second card, we have You're Fantastic, featuring those two little clownfish. Doesn't this just scream Marlin and Nemo? The large clownfish is one of the only two fish stamps in this set looking to the right. All the other fish are looking to the left. Interesting, I thought. Now, when I was rearranging the office, I came across these. These are some old Derice Easy Frame templates that you use with an embossing folder so that you have a space that's not embossed. I thought these would work perfectly as little templates. They are perfectly sized, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. I figured you could tape that to the front of a card and ink blend through that opening for a nice little window type card. So I taped the little square template to the front of a white card base, and I ink blended through that opening using some Splash reactive ink. Now that is a fast mask. I really like that. Before I removed the mask, I did flick some sparkles using my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen on the edge of an acrylic block. Got a little bit of shine and sparkle before I took the mask off. Then I masked off the bottom edge of the square with some Post-it tape, and I stamped the single coral on the bottom using some Blue Hawaii ink. I stamped the bubbles using the same ink and added dots of the Splash ink and a white gel pen all around the edges. I thought that camouflaged the fact that we didn't have perfectly flat, sharp, straight edges. Kind of gave us a really nice soft feel around the edge of that square. I stamped the fish on some Bristol Smooth cardstock using the intense black ink. I colored them with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I die cut them out. I stamped the sentiment using Blue Hawaii ink, and I did emboss that with some embossing powder for a little bit of shine on the sentiment. I added the fish with some foam tape, and there we have Marlin telling Nemo that he really is fantastic. Look at the detail on that little anemone stamp. I pity the poor fool who wants to try and color that piece of coral. Ouch, ouch, I didn't even attempt it. So I wasn't going to give up on that coral stamp that quickly. Let's see what happens if we stamp that stamp using the intensified black ink. For card number 3, we have salt water heals everything. Now that's the coral stamp. I think it's colored within an inch of its life, I think. I stamped the coral on Bristol Smooth cardstock with some intense black ink, colored that with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I die cutted it and mounted it to this stenciled background. That's all this stamp needed. Now, this is a panel of Hero Hues nautical cardstock. I stenciled in some sunbeams from my homemade sunbeam stencil, and also some white dots. Those are actually from a Simon Says stamp falling snow stencil. I stenciled in the beams and the dots using unicorn white pigment ink, and when that was dry, I sprayed the background with some sheer shimmer spritz for a nice sparkle all over that background. I stamped the sentiment using Versamark ink, and I embossed it with some white embossing powder. Then I added the coral with some foam tape. I used that whole entire coral stamp. I love this card, very beautiful. If you've got the time to devote to it, that's a really fun stamp to color. But I tell you, now that I've conquered that stamp, I doubt that I'll ever color it again. Now, I can't do an underwater set and not play with some alcohol inks to get some nice watery textures. On card number 4, we are on a black card base, and we've got Stay Salty. Ooh, that boy looks really salty, doesn't it? This kind of makes me giggle. This would make a great Father's Day card for a fisherman, or even for your favorite grumpy dad. I took my alcohol inks and some Tim Holtz alcohol ink cardstock and just played around and kept adding colors and adding colors and adding colors until I was satisfied. There are many, many layers here. While the alcohol inks were drying, I stamped the fish. Is this a rock fish? I'm not quite sure what kind of fish this is. I stamped him on some Bristol Smooth cardstock with the intense black ink, colored him with my Zig markers, and die cut him out. Now, while there was still a little bit of tack to the alcohol inks, I grabbed some silver deco foil and added that to the tacky spots. Just rubbed that on the tacky spots, and it lifted that foil right off. A little extra sparkle and shine in that shiny alcohol background. I love how it looks so different when the light is not shining on it than when the light is shining on it. I actually stamped these bubbles using Hero Arts Unicorn White ink and then embossed them with clear embossing powder. I worried that they wouldn't dry, so I just went ahead and embossed them. They work very well and are quite readable there. I die cut the inked panel with a Hero Arts rounded rectangle infinity die and added a thin white mat behind that, glued that down to our black card base. I stamped the sentiment using Versamark ink and white embossing powder, and I added 2 of these little blue sway peel-offs. These are from Love from Lizzie, a little wave reminiscent on the side of those, and rounded the right corners with my corner chomper, and lastly, added my fish to the front, our grumpy fish to the front, with some foam tape. Stay salty. And this guy is the only other fish in our set that's looking to the right. And I still have another piece of that alcohol inked cardstock, so I thought I could use it on another card on a white card base. We've got sending you a little vitamin C. So far, these have all been sentiments that are in the stamp set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we've got 6 sentiments in this stamp set. This is the other part of my alcohol inked background that I didn't use on this card. I die cut that with the Tonic Studio Scallop Square layering die and added a thin black mat behind that. I cut a piece of this dark blue pearlescent cardstock. This is 3 inches by 4 1/4 inches. I positioned the 2 panels and decided where to stamp the sentiment. It's stamped with Versamark ink and embossed with, I think that Simon Says Stamp Steel Navy embossing powder. It goes really well with this dark blue pearlescent cardstock. The fish are all stamped on Bristol Smooth cardstock with the intense black ink. I colored the lionfish using my Zig Clean color markers, and I actually colored the tang and the angelfish with my pearlescent. There's just a nice little shine to both of them. They both look kind of fishy. I glued the inked background to the card front and mounted the fish with some foam tape, and I added some more green and blue droplets for a little dimension and shine. Not that that alcohol ink needs any help. Sending you a little vitamin C. They're all going somewhere. Okay, one more sentiment to go. I did want to play with that coral stamp one more time. This is on the white lined cardstock that came in the kit. Made a great card base. And we have Hoping to See You Soon. This is a little bit of an unfocused card. I was trying a couple of techniques at the same time. I was working on kind of the spotlight coloring and also stamping with Tombow markers and coloring from the outlines. I should stick to one or the other and stop trying to combine both of them. The one best thing of this card is this background I stamped with an old, this is an Echo Park Make Waves A2 background stamp. I stamped that on a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock using Splash Reactive ink. And then I stamped that bit of the coral stamp on top of that using my Tombow markers to just color in the stamp and then stamp it down. Then I could bring water to the whole thing and blend everything out on the Bristol Smooth cardstock using just water and the ink from the stamping. Well, it didn't work quite as nicely as I would like. I think if you're doing spotlight, you really need a little bit more contrast in between your colored part and your non-colored part. The orange was a little too strong. The purple was a little too soft. I just decided, instead of trying to correct that, that I would just draw a frame around my spotlight portion there. I stamped the fish and the sentiment using the intensified black ink. I did emboss that sentiment for a little shine. I didn't emboss the fish. I did take my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen and I added some sparkle in the waves and on the coral there. Then I cut that piece to 3 inches by 4 inches, added a black mat, a thin mat of Arctic cardstock, another thin black mat, and mounted those down to my white cardstock. Hoping to See You Soon. I have to admit, I really love this one clownfish stamp. He's the only fish that's not rendered in silhouette. All of the fish are flat to the sides. He's got a little movement in him. It looks like he's actually looking for someone. Hopefully he's looking for you. Hoping to see you soon. I'll tell you, I will remember to practice one technique at a time. Don't muddy things up by combining too many techniques. So you all know, of course, that seahorses occupy one of the most unique birthing profiles in the animal kingdom. So for card number 7 here on a white card base, we've got, when it comes to being a good father, you deliver. Happy Father's Day. Father's Day is just around the corner. I thought this was a great little masculine card. When it comes to being a good father, you deliver. I think that's a fun little pun there. Now, I printed these sentiments directly on a white card base using my Silhouette software and the noteworthy font, both on the outside and on the inside. I'll have links to all the fonts I use on my website at cardcutups.com. I stamped, colored, and die cut the seahorse just like everything else on Bristol Smooth cardstock, colored it with my Zig markers, added him to the card front with some foam tape. Very simple, very straightforward, very funny. When it comes to being a good father, you deliver. Happy Father's Day. I may make a few of these to send to all the fathers I know this Father's Day. Now, I had another idea for one of those Doris Easy frames to use that as a mask for our next card on a white card base. We've got Hope Floats, featuring that great jellyfish stamp in our set. Again, I took that template, laid it on a panel of white cardstock, and inked through the opening using Distress Oxide Black Soot ink. Came out really nice. I really took care around the edges, and while the edges aren't perfectly sharp, they are perfectly clear. I really liked that. After I inked up the circle, then I sent this through my printer to print this sentiment. Hope floats. I really like that a lot. It's a great encouragement card, even a sympathy card, I think. I die cut that panel with a lawn fawn stitched rectangle die, and then I stamped our jellyfish on top of that using Hero Art's unicorn white ink. I let that dry really well. I actually added a little bit of shading under the cap there with a little brush and some of that ink. Once that was dry, I stamped the jellyfish again using Versamark ink and embossed him with that underwater embossing powder that came in our kit. Nice and sparkly, nice and shiny. I love the little blue tint that gives to the jellyfish. It feels very ethereal. I added a black mat behind our die-cut front panel, added another piece of Arctic cardstock behind that, glued those both down to a white card front. Just gorgeous. I did add, of course, some flotsam floating in the water with a white gel pen, also Stardust gel pen for a little sparkle. Hope floats. I love that sentiment. Okay, this one's fun. This is very silly, but I couldn't resist. I'm dedicating this card to the irrepressible Clara Peller. Where's the reef? A fun pun. That's a simple giggle for anyone who needs some cheering up. This little guy, he looks like he's actually did lose something important. Now, I printed this sentiment directly on my card base, again using my Silhouette software, and this is the Brady Bunch remastered font. I always use that for my funny cards. Again, I'll have links to the fonts I use on my website at cardcutups.com. The clownfish is stamped in color as usual. The bubbles are stamped on the background with the Hero Arts Soft Sky ink. Really fun. This one makes me giggle. You know how much I love my white space, and I just want to know, where's the reef? I found another nice, easy little pun that I wanted to use with these cards. I've been practicing my watercoloring off and on lately and thought I'd try a little watercolor scene for this card. And we have Take Time to Coast. It's a nice pun and a great sentiment. Take time to coast. I painted our little sunset seaside scene using some Daniel Smith watercolors just from dot cards. I only have dot cards from Daniel Smith, so I painted this all with Daniel Smith watercolors. I then die cut that with a lawn fawn stitched rectangle die, added a thin white mat, a thin black mat. I was originally thinking of using the Hero Arts nesting wood frames die to put a frame around that, but I thought it really took away from the whole picture. So I ended up just adding those to the side of our card front. This is the full-size nesting wood frame die from Hero Arts. You just cut off the cross pieces and they make perfect planks. Very beachy. I did print our sentiment on the card front using the Rostilla font and my Silhouette software. I added my little seashore scene to the front of this card with some foam tape. I stamped our 2 remaining stamps on some Bristol Smooth cardstock, colored those with my Zig Clean color markers, added those to the corner of this scene. Take time to coast. I think that's a great sentiment, and everybody should take time to coast. If nothing else, all those ions are really helpful. So that's my 10 cards inspired by the My Monthly Hero May 2021 kit. These cards are eager to lure you to the beach. Now, we actually have a pretty wide variety of cards here. Simple and elaborate, splashy, austere, useful for many different occasions. This kit is still available at Hero Arts. If I've managed to spark your imagination or inspire an idea of your own, I would heartily recommend grabbing a kit for yourself. The My Monthly Hero kits are always a great value, and it's a terrific way to monitor your craft budget and still get something new every month. month. If you do go shopping at Hero Arts, please use my links in the description down below. It helps support this channel, and it is always truly appreciated, more than you can even possibly imagine. Thank you so much for sharing some time with me today. I think we are at a good holding place as far as the renovations go. I'll keep you posted when there are updates. Everything seems to be setting up nicely, and I'm looking forward to making new things on my new desk. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please subscribe. Click the bell icon so you're notified when I post a new video. And remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't run with scissors. And as always, I wish you and yours love and light, grins and giggles, and happy crafting. For more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.